Hey everybody, this is Dr. Joe Borio with this week's Health Kick. And we took last week off, we're back on track. We want to talk about health, we want to talk about wellness, we want to talk about getting your body to work better. Before we get started, I got my Gleason shirt on. It was a shirt that my kids got down in Brooklyn. For most people who don't know, I used to be a fighter. I actually was an amateur fighter and a professional fighter. You probably don't recognize my name because I wasn't any good. But in any case, it was a really nice shirt. I actually got a black one and a white one, and I was wearing it today. And I, just out of thanks and gratitude for my kids, I wanted to wear it for today's health kick. But so Gleason Gym was down in Brooklyn. Certainly not good for your health. That's probably why I'm not doing boxing anymore. But it was a really good time in my life, and I very much enjoyed it. And it met a lot of really wonderful people when I was boxing and fighting. So it brings back good memories. So I was glad that they got it for me. It was a nice gift, thoughtful gift for Father's Day. We had a nice tribute 2 weeks ago. Hopefully you guys got a chance to see it. If you didn't, jump right on our health kicks and just punch in our YouTube and punch in tribute for Father's Day under Dr. Joe Borio. And I think you'll get a lot out of it. I do every year that I watch it. So that being said, health kick. What the heck are we going to talk about today? Today I want to talk about problems when they see challenges when we talk about mental health. I touched on it before, but a very good friend of mine, his son has schizophrenia, and we were talking about that because there's a lot of research on schizophrenia. So we can deal with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, psychosis, where the brain starts to perceive things that aren't necessarily real, or you exaggerate certain things in your life that you witness or see. That's what I mean by that, psychosis. So when we deal with those, there's a lot of research as to what's causing them. So I'm going to try to edit a little picture here on one side of my head. But the brain is made up of two large structures, if you will, what we see grossly. I mean, there's the brainstem and other parts of it, but you have the main brain that everybody's pretty much familiar with. But then there's a chunk of the brain in the back, and that's called the cerebellum. So I don't want to get too complicated here, but that cerebellum was once thought, when I went to school 20 plus years ago, it was taught to us that it had to do with coordinated movement. It would coordinate the movement of the body. But now we realize through research, really from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that the cerebellum coordinates all activity of the brain. It coordinates essentially every function of the brain. So the brain, a part of the brain that controls your digestion, it controls any of your viscera, your liver, your lungs, your kidney, your pancreas, your adrenal glands, and so forth. But the cerebellum coordinates all function of thought, how well and how coordinated your thought is. And it also, in some research in the 70s and then again in the 80s, out of the Journal of Psychiatry, it showed that it actually coordinated the primitive brain. There's a part of the brain, when you study the anthropology, if you will, the development of the brain, you're going to see parts of the brain that are primitive, meaning that you see them in animals that are much more primitive in their development than we are. And then you look at the human brain, and it looks like a cauliflower, right? Or broccoli, so it looks like it grew out. So the part that's deep within the brain that really controls simple things, our anger, our frustration, our jealousy, primitive behavior that isn't using the fore part of the brain, anger, fight or flight response is controlled by the primitive brain. Sexual activity controlled by the primitive brain. So when we look at that primitive brain is extremely important, and the activity of that is controlled by the cerebellum. Well, what does all this have to do with what I'm talking about? And what does it have to do with healthy nerve supply and so forth? Well, what they found was when they did CT scans of people with schizophrenia, psychosis, bipolar, and so forth, they found that the part of the cerebellum, the vermis, was smaller. It would atrophy, kind of like a muscle. If you didn't use it for a while, it got smaller. So they found out that the vermis would atrophy, and it would shrink. And as that area got smaller, there was less control, less coordination of brain activity. And the brain activity then would become abnormal. So the brain would lose its ability to control, by that inhibit, slow down, or speed things up. So when you perceive things, when you look at things and perceive them, neurologically it wasn't perceived properly. So we're now associating a large number, 80+%, of people with schizophrenia, psychosis, bipolar disorder with disease or dysfunction of the cerebellum. So yeah, you treat it with chemicals and so forth, and that would affect part of it, but it never got at the cause. So these people would either be immune to the drugs, or the drugs would be mildly effective or what have you. Okay? So that's important to understand. So that being said, when they say that, what they did is they took certain animals and they put stimulators, and then they did it in humans. They actually put stimulators in the cerebellum, electrical stimulators. So what it did is it sent increased electrical activity through the cerebellum, which then sent an increased electrical stimuli and activity to different parts of the brain, the primitive brain being one of them. And we saw a significant improvement in their behavior. Is that amazing? Now, why is that unbelievable, and why am I talking about that? Well, as a chiropractor, we know through neuroanatomy that the upper three vertebrae in the neck, 1, 2, and 3, cervical 1, 2, and 3, have a high number of receptors, little springs in there that send data, information, electrical activity to the cerebellum. We also know, again, neurologically, that the cerebellum relies on movement of the body, mechanical movement of the body. So when you move, you actually send more data to the cerebellum, which sends more data to the brain, makes your brain work better. Less movement makes your body sicker. Not only physically does it make your body sicker, but because the neurology is less, your brain doesn't work as well, therefore the rest of your body doesn't work as well. Amazing, right? So, that being said, by adjusting that upper area here, very specifically and carefully applying pressure to remove compression of the nerves, allow better function to stimulate the brain, that part of the brain works better. So people with psychosis, schizophrenia, bipolar, and so forth respond well to chiropractic care. So getting the spine adjusted helps greatly, dramatically, significantly in different types of mental disorders. Okay? And now we're also talking about addiction. They're also doing research now. Jay Holder did some research on addiction, and they did research on depression. So we're seeing that by stimulating that area of the body and brain through the spine, the brain works better. So another reason why you should be evaluated and under care. Everyone should be under chiropractic care. I know it sounds crazy, but listen, there was a lady that came to your school years ago and said everyone needs to brush their teeth. If you take good care of your teeth, they last you a lifetime. If you take good care of your spine, it lasts you a lifetime. One of the ways to take good care of it is chiropractic, going to a guy or a woman that knows exactly the alignment and using very specific adjustments to ensure the spine comes into good alignment, and then get in there periodically to stay in alignment. That allows the nerves to flow. The brain sends messages to the organs send messages back up to the brain. If your spine's crooked, if it gets shifted, messages don't flow, body doesn't work as well. Now we know that it affects your mood, your behavior. So if you find that you're somebody that's moody, if you're finding somebody that's depressed, if you find that you have friends or family that you know that have different forms of psychosis or schizophrenia, certainly encourage them to get into chiropractic and get evaluated. They should be under care anyways. And it's really great research. It's another great reason why I love being a chiropractor. It's another great reason why I love doing these health kicks to bring great information for you. Listen, we love working with families. So if what we do, we resonate well with you, and you like our messages, we'd love to have you part of our practice. For our practice members that watch our thought flashes on a regular basis, I'm going to ask you to help me help other people and share these thought flashes or these health kicks with other people. Let them know that there's a doctor called Dr. Joe Borio that really cares greatly about people. He puts the interests of other people ahead of himself, that really wants to see the world and their children and their grandparents live a long, good, quality life. That's why I do what I do. That's why I do these videos on a weekly basis, to bring some good ritual mentality, in the sense where you're doing something regular, you're definitely putting good information in your brain on a regular basis. Allows you to make better choices for you and your family. That gives you what? Better life, better quality, better mom, you're a better dad, you're a better uncle, you're a better cousin. You certainly are a better contributor to society, and I think the world is just healthier if we're healthier. So that's my thought there. That's me pontificating there for a minute. Guys, it's been great working with you today. Have a great, healthy week. Remember, you, your mother, your father, your grandfather, everyone you know, everyone you see, anyone that you can imagine on the globe of the earth needs to be under regular chiropractic care. So get in here and get adjusted.